A fearful thought knocks at the door of your mind. It arrives suddenly. It may carry an image, an accusation, a memory, or a prediction, and because it feels vivid, you assume it must be true. Because it returned, you fear you secretly believe it. Because it disturbed you, you wonder whether something is wrong with your faith. Stop. A knock at the door is not a king on the throne. The appearance of an unwanted thought does not reveal your deepest will. It does not define your identity. It does not prove guilt, predict disaster, or announce a spiritual verdict. A thought can be loud without being lawful. It can be persistent without being trustworthy. It can be present without being yours to obey. But be careful here. Relief must not become passivity. The thought's arrival may not be your agreement, but what you do next matters. The mind is a messenger. It reports impressions, recalls memories, imagines possibilities, and sounds warnings. That is its proper work. But a messenger delivers information. It does not seize the throne. The throne belongs to truth-governed choice. A thought gains influence when you keep giving it attention, repeat its interpretation, and inwardly agree with its conclusion. What first came as a visitor can become a familiar voice. What becomes familiar can begin to sound authoritative, and what sounds authoritative is often obeyed without examination. That is where confusion starts. In this journey, you will learn 4 movements of discernment. You will notice the thought without condemning yourself. You will identify the message it carries. You will test that message against truth. Then you will direct your attention toward a chosen, faithful response. One thought may be examined and released. Another, left untested, may echo until it sounds like a ruler. You are not helpless before that echo. You can listen without surrendering. You can examine without fearing. You can choose without waiting for perfect silence. But before you can govern a thought, the proper order within your inner life must be restored. You are more than the stream of thoughts passing through your awareness. You experience thoughts, but you are not the sum of them. You hear their arguments, but you do not owe them allegiance. You may feel their pressure, but pressure is not lordship. There is an order to the inner life. The mind brings a report. Truth supplies the standard. Attention decides whether the report receives an audience. Speech gives expression to what has been accepted. Action carries that acceptance into the world. When this order is preserved, the mind serves you well. It presents memories, impressions, warnings, and possibilities for examination. But when the order is reversed, the messenger becomes a ruler. The loudest report is accepted as the final word. Attention bows to it. Speech repeats it. Action obeys it. That is not discernment. That is an unguarded throne. Suppose someone delays answering your message. The fact is simple. No reply has arrived, but the mind may rush beyond the fact. You have offended them. They are rejecting you. Something is wrong. One unanswered message becomes a courtroom, and imagination delivers the verdict. Or perhaps you must make an uncertain decision. The mind says, if you choose incorrectly, everything will collapse. A financial concern appears, and it declares, you will never recover. A tense conversation occurs, and it announces, this relationship is finished. Notice the pattern. Limited information becomes a total interpretation. A possibility becomes a certainty. A report becomes a command. But intensity is not authority. Repetition is not truth. Emotional force is not divine endorsement. A message does not become trustworthy because it makes your heart race. It does not become wise because it wakes you at midnight. It does not become God's direction because it carries urgency. Truth must test it. Spiritual maturity is not a silent mind in which no troubling thought ever appears. It is a trained life that knows what deserves agreement. The mature believer does not obey every inner sound. The mature believer listens, examines, chooses, and proceeds under truth. So refuse the helpless identity. Stop saying, my mind controls me. Say instead, my mind brings messages, but I am a steward of my attention. You can listen without surrendering leadership. You can feel pressure without granting permission. You can receive a report without handing it the throne. The inner order is now clear, but one confusion remains at the doorway. Having a thought is not the same as agreeing with what it says. A thought arrives, then it begins to speak. First, it appears. Next, it offers an interpretation. Then, it asks for your attention. If attention remains, it invites agreement. And once agreement is granted, the message begins to shape your words, your posture, and your actions. Do you see the progression? Arrival, interpretation, attention, agreement, expression. The first moment may come without your invitation. A fearful image flashes. An old memory rises. A disturbing possibility crosses the mind. You did not schedule it, summon it, or choose it. But from that point forward, participation can increase. You may examine it, rehearse it, endorse it, repeat it, or act upon it. This is why observation must not be confused with ownership. To notice, my mind is presenting the possibility of disaster is not the same as saying, disaster is coming. To recognize an accusing thought is not to confess that the accusation is true. To imagine an action is not to intend it. To remember your past is not to return to your former identity. Temptation is not decision. Imagination is not intention. Memory is not identity. Anxiety is not trustworthy guidance. Suppose the thought says, something terrible will happen to the person you love. Fear urges you to receive that sentence as a warning, a prediction, perhaps even a spiritual signal. But pause. Say plainly, my mind is presenting a fearful possibility. It is not issuing a command, and it has not yet passed the test of truth. That sentence creates space, and in that space, you can choose. Now, be careful here. Do not build a courtroom around every mental fragment. Do not interrogate yourself for hours, asking what the thought reveals about your character or faith. Endless self-inspection does not remove the message. It keeps the message beneath a bright lamp at the center of the room. Here is the practice. Describe the thought plainly. Remove dramatic language. Identify what it claims. Then postpone belief until the claim has been tested. Do not deny that the thought appeared. Denial is not discernment. Discernment sees the thought clearly and refuses to grant it automatic authority. You are learning to say, this message is present, but my agreement is not yet given. That is a powerful space, yet it can quickly collapse when you become frightened by the very fact that the thought appeared. The thought appears, and then you become afraid that it appeared. That second fear is often more powerful than the first thought. You ask, why did I think that? What does it say about me? What if it returns? Then you begin watching the doorway of the mind. You inspect every feeling. You search every quiet moment. And because you are watching for the thought, you notice it again. The loop has begun. Fear becomes an usher. It claims that it wants the disturbing message removed, yet it keeps escorting that message to the front row. It points toward it, checks on it, and asks whether it is still there. The thought receives attention not because you welcome it, but because you dread it. Wise concern behaves differently. Wise concern asks, is this message true? Does it require action? It tests, decides, and proceeds. Fearful fixation asks, what does the existence of this thought reveal about me? Then it returns to the same trial without reaching a verdict. This is why the demand for perfect mental silence becomes a trap. You decide, I must never think this again. The thought returns, and you call the return defeat. Then, even when the mind grows quiet, you check to see whether it is truly gone. That check brings the subject back into view. It is like telling yourself not to imagine a feared conversation. You monitor the mind to see whether you are succeeding, but the monitoring keeps the conversation before you. You are trying to close the door while continually opening it to inspect the hallway. Listen carefully. Recurrence does not prove agreement. It does not prove weak faith. It does not uncover a hidden desire. It does not announce divine condemnation. It means the message has appeared again. Nothing more should be concluded until it has been tested. So adopt a calmer posture. Do not obey the thought. Do not wrestle with it, as though its volume determines your future. Recognize it. Name it. Allow it to remain unanswered for a moment. You do not have to solve every mental event the instant it arrives. Then redirect your attention by purpose, not by panic. Ask, what deserves my attention now? What truth should govern this moment? What faithful action belongs to me? Shame loses strength when you stop treating every recurrence as an emergency. Alarm loses strength when you refuse to make noise your master. But calm recognition is only the beginning. You now need a repeatable method for deciding which messages deserve attention and agreement. Here is the method: notice, name, test, direct. 4 movements, 1 disciplined response. First, notice. Become aware of the thought without immediately obeying it, suppressing it, or condemning yourself for it. Notice says, a message has arrived. It does not say, the message is true. Second, name. Identify what the thought is actually saying beneath the rush of emotion. What does it predict? What does it demand? What does it accuse? What does it assume? A vague fear feels enormous, but a clearly named message can be examined. Third, test. Bring the message before truth. Ask whether the facts support it, what kind of fruit agreement with it will produce, and whether its direction is consistent with the character and wisdom revealed in God's Word. Do not test by volume. Do not test by repetition. Test by truth. Fourth, direct. Place your attention, your speech, and your next action beneath the response you have chosen. Direct does not merely reject a false message. It turns toward what is faithful, responsible, and true. Consider the unanswered message again. You send a note, but no reply comes. A surge of fear rises. Notice, I feel alarm, and a thought is demanding my attention. Name. The message says I am being rejected and that the relationship is in danger. Test. I do not yet have evidence for that conclusion. If I agree with it, I will become suspicious, impatient, and reactive. That is not the direction of truth, wisdom, or love. Direct. I will choose patience. I will attend to what belongs to me now. If a response is appropriate later, I will make it calmly. Do you see what happened? The message reached the doorway, but it did not march directly to the throne. It passed through a guarded entrance. It was seen, identified, examined, and answered. Now, this is not a ritual for producing perfect certainty. Some situations remain unclear. Some feelings take time to settle. The purpose is not to know everything. It is to keep what has not been tested from governing what you do. In an ordinary moment, these 4 movements may take only seconds. Notice, name, test, direct. But when a message has been repeated for months or years, you may need to move slowly, patiently, and prayerfully. The framework is simple, but simplicity must be trained, and that training begins with the quiet strength of noticing. Noticing begins with a pause. Not a long pause, not a fearful inspection, just enough space to recognize something has appeared in my mind, and I do not have to answer it immediately. Let the first surge settle. Observe what has arrived. What is the thought trying to make urgent? What circumstance is actually before you? What belongs to the message? And what belongs to the alarm moving through your body? Separate them. Perhaps the circumstance is a mistake. The alarm says everything is ruined. Perhaps the circumstance is silence from another person. The alarm says rejection has already been decided. Perhaps the circumstance is uncertainty. The alarm says disaster is certain. This is where precise language becomes powerful. Vague language enlarges the threat. Everything is terrible. Nothing will ever change. I cannot handle any of this. Such sentences fill the entire room with fog. But naming turns on the light. Put the message into one plain sentence. This thought predicts that. This thought accuses me of. This thought demands that. This thought assumes that. A mistake occurred. That is, an event. Failure defines me. That is, an interpretation. A person has not replied. That is an event. I have been rejected. That is an interpretation. The future is uncertain. That is a condition. Disaster is certain. That is a prediction. Listen for the hidden absolutes. Always, never, everyone, nothing, must. I always fail. No one understands me. Nothing can improve. I must settle this now. These words often reveal how a limited event has been stretched into a total verdict. Then ask a second question. What does this message want me to do next? Does it want you to withdraw? Accuse. Rehearse. Panic. Delay. Check again. Or does it direct you toward wise, measured action? Every message seeks movement. Naming that movement exposes its leadership. Now practice. Recall one thought that has returned recently. Do not judge yourself. Do not fight it. Notice it. What appeared? What is it making urgent? What does it claim? State the message in one simple sentence. Remove the drama. Remove the prophecy. Remove the verdict against your identity. Name only what the thought is presenting. Then say, I have identified the message, but I have not agreed with it. That is stewardship. You have not surrendered to the thought. You have brought it into view. The hidden pressure has become a visible proposition. And once the message stands in the light, it must face standards stronger than repetition, urgency, or emotion. Here is the test: truth, fruit, and alignment. First, truth. Ask, what do I actually know, and what have I merely assumed? Has the message turned a possibility into a certainty? Has it turned one mistake into an identity? Has it taken one difficult hour and declared the whole future hopeless? A thought says, you failed, therefore you are a failure. Truth answers, a mistake may require confession, learning, or repair, but one event does not possess the authority to name my entire life. Second, fruit. Ask, what kind of person will agreement with this message form in me? Will it produce clarity, courage, love, patience, humility, and wise restraint? Or will it cultivate suspicion, haste, pride, despair, and reckless action? Fruit reveals direction. A thought may feel protective while making you accusatory. It may sound cautious while keeping you paralyzed. It may promise control while training you to panic. Do not judge a message only by what it promises. Examine what it produces. Third, alignment. Compare the message with the direction of God's word. How does it treat your identity? How does it speak about fear, wisdom, grace, responsibility, and conduct? Does it move you toward faithful obedience, or does it excuse avoidance and condemn you without hope? Now be careful. A thought can wear religious clothing. It can use spiritual language and still promote accusation, haste, pride, or despair. A solemn tone does not make a message sacred. Test it. Condemnation says, you are ruined, and there is no faithful path forward. Correction says, this must change. Here is the next right step. One attacks identity and closes the future. The other names responsibility and opens the door to obedience. Perhaps you fear provision will fail. Separate the facts from the prediction. Examine the fruit of panic and choose responsible action without crowning disaster. Perhaps you suspect another person. Refuse to make imagination a witness. Perhaps you fear making the wrong decision. Gather what wisdom is available, but do not demand certainty that the situation does not provide. Some messages will remain unresolved. When facts are incomplete, you can refuse fearful certainty and choose the next faithful action. And when a decision exceeds your perspective, seek wise, trustworthy counsel. Receive help, but do not transfer your responsibility to test. Your verdict may be true and actionable, partly true but distorted, unsupported and unfruitful, or unresolved and requiring patient wisdom. These standards replace inner volume with disciplined evaluation, but a verdict alone is not renewal. Once a false or distorted message has been exposed, your attention must be given a new direction. It is not enough to say no. You must also know what deserves your yes. If you only reject a fearful thought, you may leave an empty center. The mind soon returns to the same message because attention has not been given a better direction. Renewal does more than remove a false conclusion. It establishes a truthful focus and carries it into faithful action. Do not confuse distraction with direction. Distraction says, I must escape this discomfort. Direction says, I will choose what deserves my thought, speech, and action now. Distraction runs from the message. Direction takes leadership. Here is the pattern. First, state the tested truth. Second, identify the responsibility that belongs to today. Third, take one proportionate action. Perhaps the thought predicts rejection because someone has not replied. The tested truth is that silence does not prove rejection. Today's responsibility is patience and honest communication. The proportionate action may be to wait or to send one calm message rather than 5 anxious ones. Perhaps the thought says a mistake has ruined everything. The tested truth is that failure may require correction, but it does not define your whole identity. Today's responsibility is honesty. The action may be an apology, a repair, or a wiser attempt. Perhaps the mind imagines catastrophe. Do not answer with artificial optimism. Acknowledge the real concern, refuse exaggeration, and prepare wisely. Truth does not pretend that difficulty is easy. Truth refuses to call difficulty hopeless. And when the old thought returns, direct your attention again. Do not say, "I have failed because I had to return." Every return is an act of leadership. Every return strengthens the chosen path. A trail becomes clearer because it is walked repeatedly. In the same way, truth-aligned attention becomes more familiar each time you choose it over the old route. Practice now. Bring one recurring message to mind. Name it plainly. Then ask, what grounded truth answers this message? Put that truth into one sentence. Next ask, what deserves my focus today? Finally, choose one immediate action small enough to do, honest enough to matter. Do not wait for perfect peace before you proceed. Feelings may take time to follow. You can choose a settled action while the inner weather is still changing. This is how mental combat becomes purposeful leadership. Truth is no longer merely a verdict in your mind. It has a destination in your day. And what attention chooses inwardly must now be carried outward through your words and conduct. Your words become the bridge between inward agreement and outward conduct. What you repeatedly say can rehearse the fearful interpretation, or it can strengthen the tested truth. Speech does not possess magic, but it does reveal and reinforce direction. The mouth often gives public form to what attention has been entertaining in private. So learn the difference between reporting a feeling and crowning it. You may say, "I feel afraid." That is honest. But when you say, "Because I feel afraid, disaster must be near," you have placed a crown upon fear's prediction. You can acknowledge the emotion without granting its interpretation authority. Use this pattern. Acknowledge the experience, state the governing truth, and name the chosen next step. I feel anxious about this conversation, but anxiety cannot tell me what the other person thinks. I will speak calmly and listen carefully. I am disappointed by this mistake, but it does not define my whole life. I will admit what happened and make the repair I can make. I do not yet know what decision is best, but uncertainty does not require panic. I will gather wisdom and act when the next step becomes clear. Use this pattern in your private thoughts. Use it in prayer. Use it with a trusted friend. Use it before a difficult meeting, during conflict, or while waiting on a delayed answer. But be careful. Do not use forceful declarations to deny pain, avoid responsibility, or silence wise counsel. Truthful speech is not performance. It does not pretend the wound is absent or the problem is solved. It names reality without surrendering to exaggeration, and it leads toward action. Then let your conduct confirm the new order. Send the measured message. Complete the next task. Rest instead of checking again. Apologize where needed. Seek counsel. Wait without rehearsing disaster. Small actions matter because they give attention a new object. They move discernment out of endless inward analysis and into faithful living. Now identify one sentence you repeat under pressure. Perhaps it is, "I cannot handle this," or "Everything is going wrong." Reshape it. Make it honest. Make it responsible. Make it true. The mind presented a message. Discernment tested it. Attention chose a direction. Speech and action now ratify that choice. This is renewal made visible, even while the mind is still noisy. And the greatest test of this restored order comes when the same message returns after it has already been answered. The message may return tomorrow. It may return after prayer, after a wise decision, or after a day of genuine peace. Do not be surprised, and do not declare defeat. The reappearance of a thought does not erase the truth you chose or the faithful action you took. Recurrence is not surrender. When a familiar message returns, you do not always need to conduct the entire investigation again. Use the shortened response. Recognize the pattern. Recall the prior test. Restate the chosen truth, and return to your present responsibility. This is the old prediction of rejection. I have tested it. Silence is not proof. I will remain patient and attend to what belongs to me now. That is not avoidance. It is disciplined remembrance. But when should you test again? Test again when new facts have appeared, circumstances have changed, or legitimate correction has become clear. Do not test again merely because fear demands another hearing. Repeated analysis without new information may be fearful checking, dressed in the language of discernment. Your steadiness will also be strengthened by faithful rhythms, reflective prayer, thoughtful engagement with God's Word, wise conversation, proper rest, and purposeful daily activity. These are not formulas for forcing thoughts to disappear. They are practices that help keep truth, responsibility, and grace before your attention. Now listen carefully. If your thoughts become overwhelming, urge you to harm yourself or someone else, or seriously disrupt your daily life, seek qualified professional support and trusted pastoral care. Asking for help is not spiritual failure. It can be an act of wisdom, courage, and responsible stewardship. You are never called to prove faith by suffering alone. Release the demand for perfect mental silence. Measure progress differently. Do you recognize the message sooner? Do you agree with it less? Do your words carry more truth? Do your actions reflect greater wisdom? Then growth is occurring, even if the old knock is sometimes heard. One day you will notice that the mind still delivers reports, but volume no longer determines authority. A thought may speak loudly, yet you remain steady. A message may return, yet the throne remains guarded. You are not becoming a person who never has an unwanted thought. You are becoming a person who knows what to do when one appears. Now gather the whole teaching into a daily rule and prepare to make an immediate commitment. The knock comes again, but now you know your place and you know the thought's place. You do not panic because a visitor has arrived. You do not hand the visitor a crown. You listen, examine, decide, and act. Appearance is not agreement. Intensity is not authority. Recurrence is not defeat. Feeling is not final direction. Remember your daily rule. Notice, name, test, direct. Notice the thought without condemnation. Name the message without exaggeration. Test it by truth, fruit, and alignment with God's Word. Then direct your attention, speech, and action toward a faithful response. Do this now. Choose one recurring thought, not 10, just one. Write it down or state it plainly. What does it predict? What does it accuse? What does it demand? Now test it. What is actually true? What fruit does agreement produce? Does its direction align with the wisdom, grace, responsibility, and character revealed in God's Word? Then choose one sentence that will govern your attention for the next day. Make it honest, make it clear, make it actionable. Finally, choose one step. Send the measured message, make the repair, seek counsel, complete the task, rest without checking, wait without rehearsing disaster. Now speak this commitment. My mind may bring messages, but it is not my master. I will not confuse appearance with agreement or intensity with authority. Truth will test what enters my attention. I will notice, name, test, and direct. My words will express faithful agreement, and my actions will follow truth. I do not need perfect silence to walk in wisdom. Do not wait for the next storm to remember this. Practice before reacting. Practice while the knock is still soft. Practice until the proper order becomes familiar. And if you are ready to make this commitment public, write this simple declaration. I will test the message and direct my attention by truth. Share this teaching with someone who has been frightened by their own thoughts. And if you want to continue training your mind in truth-governed living, subscribe and walk with us in the lessons ahead. From this day forward, stop treating every thought as a verdict. Stop granting authority to untested messages. Listen, test, choose, proceed. Let the mind serve faithfully at its post. Let truth-guided faith govern the house.